Around Christmas time, Bruce's childhood friend Martha suffered a bad accident and broke her leg. With nobody else to care for her, Bruce decided to bring her to our home and ask me to help look after her. Without uttering a single complaint, I set about cleaning and arranging the guest room for Martha's arrival. But as I tidied up, I came across something completely unexpected: a massive stack of letters spanning more than 4 decades, exchanged between Bruce and Martha. Over 500 letters documented their nearly 50 years of entanglement. Within those pages, Bruce expressed his longing, his devotion, and his love, words thick with intimacy and passion. My heart raced as I read, caught between shock and sudden clarity. The marriage I had believed to be steady and fulfilling was, in truth, riddled with flaws from the very beginning. I realized that forced love was never built to last. So when Bruce brought Martha home, I faced him with steady resolve. Meeting his gaze, I said plainly, "We're getting a divorce. You betrayed this marriage, so you walk away with nothing." By the time Bruce arrived with Martha, I had regained my composure. I sat silently in the living room, watching him wheel her inside. They both wore smiles. Bruce, the gentle intellectual, radiated a scholarly charm. Martha, despite her leg in a cast, moved with a natural elegance that drew attention. If anyone fit the description of wolves in sheep's clothing, it was these two. I stared at them, realizing that without those letters, I would never have suspected that my nearly 70-year-old highly respected professor husband was capable of such long-term betrayal. Nor would I have imagined that Martha, the acclaimed artist known for her talent and character, would willingly play the other woman's role for decades. Bruce's smile vanished as soon as he saw me sitting there. Annoyance flashed across his face as he snapped, "Why are you just sitting there? Have you finished getting the guest room ready? Is dinner on the table?" That cold, commanding tone. He didn't speak to me like the wife he'd been married to for over 40 years. No, it was the tone reserved for a servant, barking orders without a hint of affection. Our marriage had always been unbalanced like this. Bruce commanded. I obeyed. He never smiled at me the way he did at Martha with me. There was no warmth, no kindness, only demands. My nose prickled, but I swallowed my feelings. I had spent hours sitting there, sorting through the flood of emotions, accepting what I'd long tried to deny. Yet even with acceptance, the pain remained. I was human. After all, I had feelings. I had married Bruce when I was only 20. For 48 years, nearly half a century, I had devoted myself to this man and this family, and this was his reward. Bruce's frown deepened as I remained silent. "Didn't you hear me? What kind of attitude is this? Sitting there like a statue in front of our guest? Don't you have any manners?" From her wheelchair, Martha watched us with a faint, almost imperceptible smirk. Then, in a soft, concerned tone, she asked, "Bruce, is Debbie upset about taking care of me? I don't want to be a burden." Bruce's irritation dissolved immediately. With a reassuring smile, he said, "Don't be ridiculous, Martha. Why would she mind? She's just a housewife with nothing else to do all day. Of course she's happy to help." I almost laughed out loud. When exactly had I ever said I was happy to care for her? Whatever remaining feelings I had for Bruce disappeared in that moment. I looked at him, the man I'd spent almost my entire life with, and saw him for what he truly was. The facade of respectability, charm, and intellect peeled away, revealing only the ugly truth beneath. There was no love left, only disgust. "Bruce, if you want to care for Martha, do it yourself. I have no responsibility here. And I need you to know, we're getting divorced." I spoke each word clearly, deliberately, leaving no room for misunderstanding. Bruce froze as if I'd slapped him. His finger trembled as he pointed at me, disbelief clear on his face. You must be crazy." I let out a bitter laugh. "No, Bruce. For the first time in my life, I'm thinking with perfect clarity. I want a divorce, and I want it now." For more than 40 years, I had been the obedient wife, never stepping out of line, never failing to meet his expectations. This sudden declaration was something Bruce couldn't comprehend. "Debbie, what nonsense is this? You're upset about caring for Martha, is that it? If you didn't want to, you should have said so." His voice was tinged with irritation, trying to twist things so that I appeared unreasonable. as if my supposed cruelty and selfishness were the only reasons I dare demand divorce. Martha instantly put on a pitiful expression, her eyes shining with fake remorse. I'm so sorry, this is all my fault. If I hadn't broken my leg, you two wouldn't be fighting. Bruce turned to her, his face softening. This has nothing to do with you. Debbie is just having one of her episodes at her age. Don't worry, Martha. Then, without even looking at me, he added dismissively, if you don't want to take care of her, fine, I'll hire a nurse, Martha. Let's go. Without a second thought, he wheeled Martha toward the door. Completely ignoring me as if my words were nothing more than a fleeting tantrum, I raised my voice. Bruce, make time to go to the courthouse. We need to file for divorce and we must discuss dividing the assets. Bruce didn't respond. He simply walked away with Martha, leaving me behind like an afterthought. I carefully packed the decades of letters between Bruce and Martha, took them with me, and went straight to a law firm to consult a divorce attorney. After reviewing my evidence, the lawyer said that if the proof was solid, Bruce, as the unfaithful party, could possibly walk away with nothing. We talked for over an hour, and by the time I left, I had a plan. Bruce had shown no mercy, but I wouldn't stoop to his level, not for him, but for our children. Eddie and Sandra had established successful lives with thriving careers and families. I didn't want this divorce to become a public spectacle that might harm them. As long as Bruce agreed to the separation, I wouldn't go out of my way to destroy him. I stored the evidence in a safe place, took a copy of the draft divorce papers, and returned home. When I entered, I found Eddie and Sandra sitting on the couch, their faces stormy. Eddie was the first to speak, frustration sharp in his voice. Mom, what the hell are you doing? Why are you suddenly asking Dad for a divorce? A cold wave washed over me as I looked at my son, the boy I'd raised with my own hands, now speaking as if I were the one at fault. Sandra joined in, disbelief clear in her tone. Dad told us you're leaving him. After all these years, why is this necessary? I clenched the papers in my hand. They didn't know I couldn't blame them for reacting this way, but soon they'd learn the truth. Bruce and I were parting ways. Once that happened, he'd marry Martha, and the secret would come out anyway. I might as well be the one to tell them first. Your father cheated, I said steadily. He and Martha have been having an affair for decades. I won't tolerate it any longer. I'm divorcing him. I had poured my love into these children, raised them carefully, and naively thought they'd stand by me. I expected them to be furious on my behalf, to call Bruce and Martha out for their shameless betrayal. I was wrong. Eddie frowned. Mom, we've known about Dad and Aunt Martha for a long time. They were deeply in love back then, but circumstances tore them apart. Aunt Martha never married. She's been waiting for Dad all these years. Isn't it natural he still loves her? My breath caught. Sandra nodded. Mom, Dad's status means he naturally has close female friends. You've been a housewife your whole life. You don't share his world or his conversations. Honestly, you were never a good match for Dad. You do know he was forced to marry you, right? She looked at me with something like pity. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. Dad and Aunt Martha are just close friends. They never betrayed you. Do you really want to stir up trouble over this? If I hadn't read those letters, I might have believed them. I might have fooled myself into thinking Bruce and Martha were innocent. But how could they be? 40 years of tangled emotions. 40 years of holiday trips spent together. 40 years during which Bruce never brought me flowers or thoughtful gifts, but lavished Martha with presents. He never remembered what I liked, but knew Martha's preferences like the back of his hand. I'd always assumed this was a secret just between Bruce and Martha. That my children, like me, had been kept in the dark. But now I knew the truth. I looked at Eddie, then Sandra. My voice hollow, I said, So you both knew you knew all along? They nodded together. Eddie was the first to answer, shifting uncomfortably. Mom, we never meant to keep this from you, Eddie said, his voice gentle but firm. We just didn't want to upset you. Dad is a respectable man, and Aunt Martha isn't some random woman. We trust their integrity. They wouldn't cross any boundaries. Sandra quickly added, Mom, you're blowing this out of proportion. This isn't the time for jealous outbursts. Think about the family. Think about us. Stop treating divorce like it's some casual matter. I nearly choked on my own breath. My husband's betrayal stung deeply, but the way my children responded was even more unbearable. It was worse. So much worse had I truly raised them. Had I devoted my life to nurturing two children who now stood here defending the man who had humiliated me? Sensing the anger growing in my face, Eddie tried to ease the tension, speaking with exaggerated patience, as if I were a stubborn child. Mom, I get it. You're upset. But what's going to change? You don't have a job. You've been out of touch with the world for decades. How do you expect to survive on your own? Sandra nodded along. Exactly, you've lived comfortably with Dad. You never had to work, never worried about money. What else could you possibly want? Comfortable life? I let out a bitter, hollow laugh. I had never experienced comfort. Once, I had a promising career. But when Bruce's parents fell ill and he needed to focus on work, I gave it all up. I stayed home to care for his family. Then came our children, and I devoted myself to raising them. By the time they were grown, grandchildren arrived, school runs, meals, errands, always tending to everyone else. For 40 years, I never lived for myself. I was always someone's daughter, wife, mother, grandmother. Never, not once, was I simply me, and I never complained foolishly. I believed my sacrifices were recognized and my love appreciated, but to them, I was enjoying life. Tell me, what kind of luxury is waking before dawn to prepare breakfast? What kind of privilege is scrubbing floors, doing laundry, running endless errands, cooking meals day in, day out, year after year? In 4 decades, I never traveled, never saw a movie in a theater, never attended a concert. I was little more than a glorified maid, and at least maids get paid. I had nothing. I stared at my children, my face frozen in disbelief. Eddie, sensing he'd pushed too far, softened his tone. Mom, if you don't want to take care of Aunt Martha, that's fine. Dad can hire a nurse. Just don't make this a spectacle. You've lived here long enough. Do you really want the neighbors gossiping about you? Gossip? They thought I was the shameful one. Eddie pressed on. Just call Dad, apologize, and let's move on. My hands trembled with fury. Sandra chimed in. I actually need Aunt Martha's help with something, Mom. Even if you don't care about Dad, think about me. Don't make her hate us. Just call Dad and say you're sorry. Before I could react, they dialed Bruce's number, shoved the phone into my hand, and waited expectantly for 40 years. Whether I was right or wrong, I was always the first to apologize. I bowed my head every time, and now they expected me to do it again. Apologize to the man who had spent his life loving another woman, who wrote love letters to her while treating me like I was invisible. While he traveled the world with Martha, enjoying himself, I was trapped in these walls, unseen and unimportant. Yet they still expected me to humble myself. My heart felt empty and barren. I looked at my son and daughter, the very children I had nurtured and raised with my own hands, now strangers to me. The moment they grew up and built their own lives, I became nothing. Maybe now that they had their own money, they looked down on me, the mother who stayed at home. Not only did they lack respect, but they regarded me as weak, someone to dismiss and trample. I glanced down at the phone pressed into my palm. Bruce's cold voice came through the line. What? Under their expectant eyes, I spoke clearly, enunciating each word. Bruce, I'm telling you again, I want a divorce. Come over now so we can finalize this. Bruce didn't take me seriously. He brushed me off with half-hearted scoldings before hanging up Eddie and Sandra. Seeing my determination, shook their heads in frustration. To them, I was being unreasonable. They didn't stick around long. They had no interest in standing by me. And just like that, I was alone. I sat on the couch, staring at the emptiness, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. My whole life, what a joke, what a pitiful existence, but self-pity wouldn't get me anywhere. There was no one to turn to, no one to share my grief. I had only myself. And for the first time ever, I was going to fight for me. Bruce hadn't made a move. He probably assumed I'd cave, swallow my pride like always. Too bad for him. I had no intention of backing down. Not now, not ever. I gave him a week. 7 days passed, and he neither showed up nor called. He thought ignoring me would make me crawl back. He was wrong. I began packing. Eddie and Sandra had proven just as cold and selfish as their father. I'd once worried about protecting them, keeping the divorce quiet for their sake. But after that conversation, I saw how foolish that was. In this house, I was nothing. No one cared. So why protect people who treated me like air? I wasn't just divorcing Bruce. I was making sure he walked away with nothing box by box. I packed his belongings. It dawned on me just how much of the house was his clothes, shoes, books, papers. Dozens of boxes filled the living room and hallways, and then there was me. After over 40 years, I barely owned anything. No fine clothes, no cherished possessions. Only a lifetime of sacrifice, making sure everyone else had what they needed. When I finished, the house felt different. Lighter, freer. The next morning, I called Bruce. "I've packed your things," I said evenly. "You can come collect them or send someone." He exhaled sharply, irritated. "Debbie, do you have to be this unreasonable? All I asked was for you to help care for Martha for a few days. You've cared for others before. Why make such a fuss?" Still, he stood on his pedestal, looking down on me. I had no patience. "I'm holding your things for 3 hours. If you don't come, I'm throwing them out. By the way, the house is mine, the assets too." Bruce didn't let me finish before exploding with rage, cursing and slamming down the phone. I didn't care anymore how he reacted. Sitting alone, I started tallying the finances of our marriage. I didn't know every detail, but I knew we owned 3 properties and 2 cars. Bruce, a renowned professor, earned a hefty salary with bonuses and awards. Step by step, I added it up. The 3 hours flew by. No sign of Bruce. I called a moving company to collect the items, just as the movers began loading his books and papers. Bruce finally appeared. He stopped them, yelling, "Stop! Stop right now!" Then he turned to glare at me. "Debbie, you've gone too far." I met his glare with cold eyes. "I warned you, you're late." "You're impossible," Bruce shouted. Trembling finger pointed at me. The woman he'd oppressed all these years, the one who never raised her voice, was someone else now. Finally, Bruce began to see me clearly. "Fine, if you're set on this, let's talk divorce." Of course, we sat apart, and I handed him the papers. "Everything's ready, just sign here." Bruce read, eyes widening at the asset division clause. You want everything?" He stammered. "Debbie, how dare you?" I smiled bitterly. "You cheated. Bruce. Martha's the one who betrayed this marriage, and with all this evidence, what do you expect? The guilty party gets nothing. You walk away empty-handed." I laid out the facts. Naming Martha as the betrayer, Bruce's face flushed deep red. He tried to argue, but I slammed a stack of documents on the table. He picked them up, drained of color, hands shaking. How do you have these?" For over 40 years, I'd been the dutiful housewife, soft-spoken, mild-mannered. Managing the household, Bruce stopped seeing me as a person, let alone an equal. He thought I was weak, easily manipulated, without a voice. But I wasn't a docile woman. I'd been a brilliant student from a family of intellectuals. My parents were professors. Bruce, in contrast, came from nothing, raised on a small farm. When he met me, he was my father's student. Bruce's eyes were set on my family's wealth and influence, not just me. He left his true love, Martha, to marry me. Hoping to use my family's connections to advance his career, I had fallen for him not just because of his ambition, but also because of his charm, his determination, and the kindness he seemed to show. I believed he was a good man. But I was mistaken. I had painted him as perfect in my mind, yet the reality was far from that. A struggling student? If Bruce had any principles, he would have been thankful to my parents for giving him the chance to succeed. Instead, he exploited their generosity to climb the ladder, leaving me behind in the process. After we got married, I did everything I could to support him. I gave up my job to care for his parents and manage our home, so he could focus fully on his career. If he had any sense of responsibility, he would have ended things with Martha and shared his life with me. But responsibility was never his concern. He was too greedy. He took advantage of my family's help and treated me like a servant, as nothing more than someone who cleaned up after him while he romanced other women. He thought I was trapped, that I would never walk away. I stayed silent for so long out of love. I dedicated my life to him because I loved him, but now I understood the truth. Bruce had never loved me. So why should I keep carrying this burden? Over the years, Bruce and Martha were careless with their affair, openly flaunting their relationship, going on trips together, and enjoying themselves without a worry in the world, forgetting to hide their tracks. But using the letters Bruce wrote to Martha, I tracked their movements in the last 2 years alone. Last Christmas, they went skiing in the mountains. This July, they vacationed on an island, taking countless photos. And this Christmas, they were at it again, embarking on a new adventure, with Martha attempting rock climbing. She believed her body was up to the challenge, but after living a pampered life, she was unprepared for such a demanding sport. She fell and broke her leg. Seeing his lover hurt, Bruce panicked, openly showing concern and affection for her. Bruce had forgotten we live in the digital age. As he comforted Martha, a photo was snapped capturing their intimate moment. People assumed they were a married couple, praising their perfect love, utterly unaware they were just two cheaters. Bruce never imagined I'd get hold of so many intimate photos and videos of him and Martha. Bruce, a respected university professor now retired but still influential, and Martha, a well-known film critic, both understood how scandalous their affair could be. Bruce tried to reason with me, softening his voice. I just can't let go of Martha. Nothing ever happened before. Before he finished, I cut him off sharply. Don't lie to me, Bruce. If you had any dignity, you wouldn't be tangled in this mess. I won't give you any chances. Divorce is final. Seeing my firm stance, Bruce bargained for some assets. Can you at least leave me 20%? I refused coldly. Don't even consider it. I looked him squarely in the eye, choosing each word carefully. The divorce is final and you walk away with nothing regarding your affair with Martha. I won't expose it. For now. But if you harm me, you know the consequences. Bruce was well aware of the stakes. He had enjoyed years of praise and couldn't bear public disgrace. In the end, he signed the papers shortly after. Eddie and Sandra stormed in, furious. How can you be so heartless, so greedy? They demanded. Their tone made it seem like I'd committed a terrible crime. They bombarded me with accusations. You want him to leave with nothing? What have you contributed? This house is all Dad's hard work. How can you be so cruel? Doesn't your conscience bother you? I couldn't help but laugh at their self-righteous anger. Calmly, I said, You want to talk conscience? Fine, where's yours? I sneered. From the day you were born, did your father ever care for you? Cook a meal? Wash your clothes? Drive you anywhere? That's all been me, the one you accuse of having no conscience. They fell silent. I pointed at Eddie. You said Dad and Martha were madly in love, right? Well, they've been having an affair for over 40 years, so yes, they're a couple, but their love is built on cruelty. If I had no conscience, I would have let you die years ago. Eddie was speechless, but asked, What do you mean? I replied coldly, Your father never wanted you? When he found out I was pregnant, he kept pressuring me to get rid of you. I continued, I never understood why you and Dad wanted no children. Now I see why he'd already decided to stay with Martha and didn't want the burden of you. That's the real face of the father you respect so much. Eddie shook his head, refusing to believe this can't be true. Your lying dad isn't like that. I smiled bitterly. You don't want to believe me? Fine, but truth doesn't matter to you, does it? All you care about is money. Flustered, I waved them off. Leave, I don't want to see you again. But they lingered. Eddie said, Mom, what will you do with all that money? You don't know how to manage it? You don't understand business? You'll get scammed. Sandra added, You won't remarry, right? So many people try to marry for money. We just want to help manage it for you. Now I understood their true motive. I laughed, a cold, harsh laugh. So you want the money, huh? Just like your father, selfish and greedy. You're just like him. When they sided with those who hurt me, I gave up on them. Want my money? They were dreaming I'd donate every penny to charity before giving them a cent. After threatening to call the police, Eddie and Sandra finally left. No loyalty, no family sense, no reason to indulge them. Once alone, I put the house up for sale. From now on, I cut all ties. While selling the house, I searched for a smaller place. The old house was too big for one, too empty. I found a cozy apartment around 100 square meters. Once purchased, I went out to celebrate. That's when Martha contacted me, feigning innocence. Debbie, I know there's been some misunderstanding between you and Bruce because of me. Is it really because of me that you want a divorce? Bruce and I haven't done anything. You have to believe me. I honestly couldn't fathom where she got the nerve 40 years sneaking around behind my back, destroying my family. If she had any dignity, she'd never have done this shamelessly. But of course, I wouldn't give her an inch I cut her off. Oh, so you're telling me that after all these years, you've received gifts from Bruce, traveled the world with him, but you didn't know the money was ours? You didn't know those hotel stays and meals were paid with shared assets? You know exactly what you've done, and now you have the nerve to explain? You're a thief. Unable to maintain composure, Martha snapped. I admit we became close through work, but there's nothing between us. He's been married to you for decades. How could you let him leave with nothing? I shot back. Listen, Martha, just because I promised Bruce not to expose your affair doesn't mean I'll show you mercy. You know what you are. His mistress, don't come near me. I'm not Bruce. I won't tolerate you. Martha's anger flared, voice rising. No wonder Bruce says you have no fun, that you only care about money, Debbie. You're the most vulgar, scheming woman. I smiled calmly. You two must be so noble, huh? You don't like money but wear gold, live in mansions, drive luxury cars. You don't love money, yet you beg me not to make Bruce lose everything. Think carefully. You're asking me, not negotiating. Martha fumed, trying to provoke me. Debbie, you're pathetic. Your husband doesn't want you. Your kids despise you. You've been a joke all these years. Exactly what she wanted. My children had sided with her and Bruce. Backing her every word, Martha felt smug, thinking her victory would enrage me. But I was calm, voice steady. Ungrateful children. If you want them, they're yours. I hope you enjoy laughing at me for a long time. Seeing her words had no effect, Martha grew restless. She posted more photos and videos of her and Bruce's intimate moments, flaunting their closeness. She also shared clips of herself with Eddie and Sandra, trying to show their friendship. Honestly, it didn't bother me. Soon, my divorce hearing with Bruce arrived. I woke early and headed straight to court. The past month had been strangely peaceful for me. I bought a new home, styled it exactly how I wanted, and finally moved in. No longer did I have to wake up before dawn to prepare breakfast for everyone. I could sleep until I woke naturally. There was no stress about dinner, no need to cook different meals to satisfy various tastes. During this time, I was truly free. I ate whatever I pleased, slept when I felt like it, and spent my days indulging in clothes shopping, beauty treatments, learning flower arrangement, painting, and playing piano. Life felt easy, light, and carefree. Sure, I put on a few pounds, but my energy and spirit were at their peak. Meanwhile, Bruce appeared to be a shadow of his former self. His shirts were wrinkled and stained, his beard untrimmed, and his eyes empty and lifeless. Seeing him like that almost made me laugh aloud. As for Martha, after our last confrontation, she began sending me daily updates of her and Bruce's so-called romantic escapades. When I was married to Bruce, I was the one working tirelessly, caring for him like a devoted servant, while he did nothing. But now, with Martha injured, the roles reversed. Martha, nursing a broken leg, depended on Bruce to feed her, bring her tea, bathe her, and help with every little task. She reveled in the pampering. But Bruce, who had never lifted a finger at home, was clearly struggling. This past month taught Bruce something important. The woman he'd dreamed of all those years, Martha, was far from perfect. She was no longer the untouchable beauty he had idealized. She was just an ordinary woman. She needed to eat, used the bathroom like anyone else, didn't wear makeup, and lacked thick layers of foundation to hide her flaws. She couldn't maintain the pristine, glamorous image for him anymore. Bruce finally grasped that Martha was just like any other woman. Her skin sagged, and wrinkles around her eyes had deepened. She showed no concern for Bruce's opinion. She was stubborn and gave him neither the respect nor care he felt entitled to. What he once wanted so badly now felt entirely different. Bruce regretted it all and even tried to convince me to reconsider the divorce. What a dreamer. I didn't hesitate for a second as I signed the papers. Walking out of the courthouse, I couldn't help but hum a happy tune. I was finally free and at peace. Bruce, on the other hand, faced the reality of caring for Martha through her long recovery. His troubles were just beginning. After receiving the divorce certificate, I booked a tour group and started traveling the world. I didn't delete Martha's contact info. I kept an eye on her, watching as she flaunted her relationship with Bruce. As the saying goes, a long illness makes for an ungrateful child, and Bruce certainly wasn't any model of filial devotion. He had lived in luxury for decades, serving Martha like a beast of burden. Now he was struggling. He had to perform, acting happy for the cameras, pretending to be joyful for all to see. I could only imagine how awkward that must be for him. I knew Martha's game. She wanted me to see her so-called happiness. But happiness isn't something you can just flaunt. It's like wearing shoes. Only the wearer knows if they truly fit. Martha posted frequently about her romantic moments with Bruce. Before, when Bruce and I were married, she blocked everyone except me from seeing her posts. But once we divorced, she dropped the pretense. She shared her love with Bruce openly, hoping for validation and admiration. But the world doesn't revolve around Martha. People only praise you if they want something or genuinely admire you. Martha's posts failed to win her much support. Few wished them well. Whispers and gossip spread behind their backs. Bruce and I had been married over 40 years, our union considered a model of success. Now, suddenly divorced, Martha and Bruce were together so quickly it raised eyebrows. Anyone with common sense could see what was happening. They weren't clean. Bruce's long tenure in academia earned him many enemies. Martha had made foes too, suppressing others to climb her career ladder. Their public displays of affection gave their rivals ammunition. Rumors flew that Bruce and Martha had been involved long before the divorce, accusing them of infidelity. The more they flaunted their relationship, the more evidence surfaced, and before long the proof leaked, sparking public outrage. Neither Bruce nor Martha grasped the gravity of the fallout. Martha had wanted congratulations and praise for her romance, but instead, things blew up in her face. She was furious. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't the one spreading rumors. It was their enemies, seizing the chance to take them down. Furious, Martha called me, her voice shaking with anger. "Debbie, it's you, isn't it? You're behind this. You're just jealous of Bruce's love for me. You're shameless and petty." I couldn't stop myself from laughing. Shameless? That's you, Martha. You crossed every line and still flaunt it. Should I call you clueless or just stupid? Don't you realize your affair with Bruce is a scandal? Martha refused to accept blame. She insisted I was stirring trouble to ruin them. She begged Bruce to call me, demanding I return the divorce settlement. Of course, that was wishful thinking, and I ignored it. After Bruce's few futile calls, they both understood the money was gone. Martha's leg healed, and she eagerly flaunted the love she'd missed for years. She and Bruce appeared hand in hand at movies, plays, dinners, but the damage was done. Rumors about her as Bruce's mistress and his reputation as a cheat spread far and wide. Whenever they appeared, people whispered and pointed fingers. Martha seethed with rage. Refusing to accept the mockery, she blamed me for everything. She teamed up with Bruce and my children to tarnish my name. They spread stories, implying I was the cheater, that our marriage failed because of me, that I left Bruce willingly, and that I was disloyal. Meanwhile, I traveled with my tour group, socializing and dining with others. But they twisted it into tales of me traveling with a lover. Martha worked hard to drag my name through the mud. Eddie and Sandra stood firmly with them, forming a united front. Their lies made everyone believe I was the villain. After all, what kind of children would slander their own mother so shamelessly? Martha thought she had won. She believed the worst was behind her. But little did she know, their enemies had found me. They revealed every lie and slander Martha spread in my name. Even the gentlest cat has claws. I wasn't who I once was. I refused to endure this humiliation. I'd given them chances to back off, but they pushed too far. If they wanted to dig their own graves, I'd gladly help. Bruce and Martha's affair was laid bare for the world. Their enemies showed no mercy. Exposing every detail, photos of them at hotels were posted online. Along with their once loving moments, now damning evidence. Bruce's lifelong reputation was shattered. The more people dug, the uglier the truth. Public outrage grew daily. Bruce called, demanding answers, but I told him calmly, evil always meets its match. Karma never loses an address. The public delved into Bruce and Martha's past. Bruce's early struggles when he depended on my parents were unearthed, and he was condemned for ingratitude. Martha's secrets surfaced too. Her decades-old affair with a producer and director, including an abortion that damaged her uterus, came to light. She couldn't have children and had hidden the truth, instead dangling false devotion to Bruce as a shield. By then, Bruce was successful, and Martha wasn't about to lose her backup plan. The more their histories were exposed, the uglier it got. Eddie and Sandra were implicated as well. Their coldness toward me, support for Martha, and efforts to cover up Bruce's affair were revealed. The backlash targeted them too, damaging their careers. Their lives grew difficult. The turmoil dragged on for months, and internet discussions never ceased. Every comment twisted my name into new narratives, piling on labels. But I barely noticed and felt no need to defend myself. To me, it no longer mattered. Life moves forward, and ultimately, it is my own path I must walk alone. The opinions of others are nothing more than the distant echoes of onlookers, mere background noise that I need not heed. I continued on my journey, having recently concluded a peaceful visit to a small town in the south of France before setting out on my worldwide travels. A full year passed in what felt like the blink of an eye, and not a single trace of regret settled within me. That year was filled with uninterrupted freedom, no interruptions, no one able to take away even a fraction of the liberty I had reclaimed. I wandered through various countries and cities, waking each morning enveloped in the invigorating feeling of limitless freedom. Upon arriving in a quiet town in Norway, the cold winter air greeted me with a brisk sharpness that was almost refreshing. Bundled in a heavy coat, the chill failed to bother me, as my heart was already warmed by a calm, deep-seated peace. I settled by a window in a charming cafe, slowly savoring each bite of Norwegian salmon roe, allowing the fresh, salty taste of the sea to linger on my tongue. My phone buzzed repeatedly, but I deliberately chose to ignore it. In that moment, it was as if the entire world had paused. It was just me and the breathtaking view before me. Then suddenly, my phone lit up with a message. It was from Sandra. Her words were brief, cold, and to the point. "Mom, Dad's in the hospital. He's been diagnosed with terminal cancer. He doesn't have much time left. Can you come?" I stared at the screen, but no emotion stirred within me. Taking a slow breath, my finger glided across the screen, ultimately selecting delete. The answer was clear. No, I'm not a cruel person, nor am I devoid of empathy. But I am simply human. I know all too well the sting of betrayal, the ache of deception, and the pain inflicted by those who have wronged me. The love I once held dear had long been eclipsed by those wounds. I am no longer willing to forgive lightly those who disrupted my life, especially Bruce and Martha. Their pain and remorse no longer concern me, and I have no duty to bear their burden. As the months passed, I continued my travels, embracing the world's beauty and reflecting on life's hard-won lessons. Meanwhile, my phone remained flooded with messages about Bruce's declining health, anxious notes from Sandra, and more, but all of it felt like passing smoke, easily brushed aside without touching my heart. Half a year later, I returned home. As I stepped off the plane, another message arrived from Sandra. "Mom, Dad has passed." Still, I felt nothing. No reply came from me. They no longer had any place in my life. Bruce's death did not stir a single shred of guilt or add any weight to my journey. I had long since stepped out of their shadows and found my own light. I tucked my phone away gently and gazed at the bustling crowd in the airport terminal. A quiet, satisfied smile crossed my lips. All that had passed was truly behind me, and all the pain had lost its meaning. Now, I lived my own life, completely mine, free from all constraints and sorrows. Only joy, freedom, and infinite possibilities remained. Life moved onward, and so did I, the woman who finally lived solely for herself. This is Martha's story. Memories often surge back in the quiet of night like scars that refuse to heal, resurfacing time and time again. Back then, I was a young girl from a poor family, my eyes filled with naive hope but my heart burning with ambition and defiance. Every time I stood before the mirror and caught sight of my ordinary face, a pang of unease gnawed at me. Compared to daughters born into prominent families, I was missing something fundamental, the natural radiance they seemed to carry effortlessly. Then Bruce entered my life, like a stone thrown by fate into the still waters of my existence. At the time, he was a rising star in academia, charming, brilliant, and widely known. Not only did he command my admiration, but he ignited a fierce desire within me to stand by his side. My family was struggling financially, and I was the first to attend college. Every penny came from scholarships or my family's sacrifices. Bruce, by contrast, was a talented scholar, possessing knowledge as vast as the ocean and a presence impossible to ignore. His every gesture radiated an aura I couldn't resist. Though our backgrounds were vastly different, we shared similar ambitions and ideals. Deep down, I knew I depended on him. He could open doors to a broader world for me, and I longed for the prestige that accompanied being his partner. But time is a double-edged sword. We studied together in libraries, dreamed together of the future. Slowly, though, Bruce's attention shifted away from me. He grew busier, more distant, more withdrawn. Eventually, the light in his eyes was replaced by the resignation of someone forced to compromise with reality. Debbie, the gentle, family-oriented woman, was the wife he ultimately chose. From a privileged family, her parents' support gave him the stability he craved amid life's struggles. For Bruce, it was the most practical choice. My heart tore apart, slowly and relentlessly. I was too young to understand why he made such a choice. My jealousy deepened, though I understood my humble origins. I could not accept the loss. For years, Bruce remained my emotional anchor. Though he had Debbie as his wife, our intellectual companionship never truly faded. We occasionally met, and in those moments I felt the familiar reliance between us. I knew, deep down, he could never forget me. In some corner of his heart, there would always be a place for me. With Bruce's help, my career began to flourish. As an artist of some standing in the film industry, I leveraged his academic influence to advance my position within the art scene. Bruce's fame became the stepping stone that lifted me to the top. At every exhibition and premiere, I stood by his side, ensuring everyone knew the unspoken connection between us. But beneath these glamorous moments lurked emptiness and fear. I could never bear children. This was a wound I carried lifelong. I knew Bruce could never give me a complete family, so I turned to Debbie's children for substitutes. Her son, just entering the workforce, was filled with uncertainty. Her daughter was steadily rising in society, becoming prominent. I refused to miss any chance to involve myself in their lives. I showered them with care and artistic support. They seemed willing to accept my help, and gradually my possessiveness grew. I no longer wanted to be a mere observer. I craved control, just as Debbie once did with Bruce. My dependence on Bruce gradually morphed into manipulation. Whenever I felt insecure or feared being forgotten, I skillfully guided him back into my world with carefully chosen words. Our relationship, though sometimes strained and awkward, became my lifeline, the sole anchor I clung to, even as its warmth faded. But as years passed, Bruce ceased to be the vibrant young man I had admired. Memories of our shared past faded. Recently, the injury to my leg made movement difficult, a constant reminder of the passage of time. One evening, Bruce pushed me into the living room. I looked at him, but the admiration and dependence I once felt had turned into emptiness and indifference. He was no longer the hero I had once chased, just an ordinary man weighed down by responsibilities. His patience thinned. Every time I needed help, annoyance flashed in his eyes. The woman who had once relied on him, who had sacrificed everything for him, had become a burden he no longer wished to bear. Panic gripped me. I looked back to the letters we had exchanged, reliving the days when we brimmed with youthful dreams. I had given so much, my future, my hopes, but now he was indifferent and cold. Was it all a dream? A self-created illusion? Was my reality now barren? When the secrets of our relationship surfaced, gossip erupted. I had often wondered what fate awaited our love, but I never imagined such disgrace. Holding our letters, my gaze distant, I gently burned them, letting the flames consume the pain inside me. Looking at my reflection in the mirror, I whispered, I deserve this loneliness. Over the years, I greedily sought to possess everything, but in the end, I lost the most precious thing, myself. Once a girl chasing dreams, filled with hope and longing, now left only with emptiness and endless regret. I had fancied myself the victor in life's cruel game, but now I saw everything was merely a mirage I had conjured. Bruce, Debbie, Everyone who had been part of my life would eventually leave. My life seemed destined to be a tragedy, a tale of greed and inferiority, a sorrowful story I had written myself.